welcome to the Gospel Truth. I'm Alan Jackson, bringing to you spiritual songs and hymns and the power of the spoken word of God. First of all, giving thanks to God Almighty for blessing me with this another outpouring of His tender love and mercy, and that He's allowed me once again to be on this the time side of life and have this another blessed privilege to come to you in His name by way of this television medium and to bring to you another program from His holy and divine word. And I'm praying on your behalf as participant observers. And it is my prayer that God will continue to bless you and your family with all of those things that He knows that you are standing in need of as well. So as we continue in our tribute to Black American History 2022, the world has lost a great actor, film director, and diplomat. The first black man to win the Oscar Academy Award. I remember my dad taking Mom, my brother, and me to see down there at the Paramount Theater in Oakland, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. This is the Kennedy Awards 1995 tribute to Mr. Sidney Poitier.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 1992 Kennedy Center honoree, Paul Newman.
Mr. President, Mrs. Clinton, honored guests, Sidney, where are you? Smile. Gotcha. Sidney Poitier and I did a picture together about 100 years ago. And I discovered he's a very private person. It's hard to know if a private person is your friend or if he's just less private with you than he is, let's say, his rowboat. Actually, the film we did was a film called Paris Blues. It was a jazz film, and Louis Armstrong was in it. Louis spoke of Sidney with hushed reverence. Louis said, "This guy cannot keep a tune. He cannot find the beat. He cannot finger the saxophone. But look at him, he sure fools me." We all play many roles in our careers, and Sidney has also had to play the role of social pioneer. It was a role he did not seek, but no one could have filled it better than he did. It's hard to believe that it's been 50 years since he's been on the stage, but his work since then has been a pilgrimage of startling grace. He has not only made films, he has changed the face of film itself. Of course, in all of these years, he has not learned how to play the saxophone. And if Louis Armstrong couldn't do it, I don't think even you could, Mr. President. But aside from the saxophone, Sidney, you are a superb example for all of us. Tonight, we salute you, and to put it in the simplest terms, you are one serious, delicious kick in the rear.
You're pretty sure of yourself, ain't you, Virgil? Virgil, that's a funny name for a nigger boy that comes from Philadelphia. What do they call you up there?
They call me Mr. Tibbs.
Cat Island, Bahamas. It was home. No electricity, no running water, and an 8-mile hike to the tomato fields the family farmed. He was the youngest of Reginald and Evelyn Poitier's 8 children. Loose-limbed, good-looking, and an inch away from trouble. His parents sent him to live with a brother in Miami. Everything was clearly marked, he said. He was stunned by the strict separation of white and black. He bought a ticket for as far north as his money would take him. He arrived in New York with the clothes on his back. He slept on rooftops. He took what work he could get. Then an ad caught his eye. Acting, he thought. Well, it couldn't pay less than washing dishes. The director of the American Negro Theater was aghast. You can barely read. Your accent is impossible. You're wasting my time. He bought a radio and for 6 months listened and listened, studying voices and polishing his speech. He failed his second audition. Then let me sweep up in exchange for acting lessons, he said. The company took him in. An understudy, there came the night, he went on for the star. A producer saw him and cast him in a Broadway show. The part was small. His presence was all they talked about. 3 years later, he was in his first movie. His talent was never in question. But would Hollywood have the courage? I walked onto the back lot, he said, and the only other black face belonged to the shoeshine boy. He stood alone in the light, raised himself to his full height, and he compelled us to listen.
All I want is to make a future for this family. All I want is to be able to stand in front of my boy, like my father never was able to do to me, and tell him that he'll be somebody in this world besides the servant and the chauffeur. Huh? You tell me that, huh?
In one groundbreaking performance after the next, he closed the distance and stepped firmly into movie stardom. The first black actor to carry a film. The first black actor to win the Oscar in a leading role.
I'm a Baptist. I don't go to Mass.
We go.
Well, how'd you get there before I came along?
We walk every Sunday, now we got you.
Now, damn it! You ain't got me.
Good night, Schmidt.
Now, get that very straight.
Schlafen Sie wohl.
And cut that out.
Bless you, Schmidt.
He made his boldest strokes with the fewest words.
In the meanwhile, you just killed yourself a white man, just about the most important white man we got around here, and picked yourself up $200.
I earned that money 10 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Colored can't earn that kind of money, boy. Hell, that's more than I make in a month. Now, where did you earn it?
I'm a police officer.
He left no doubt in the roles he chose and the words he spoke, exactly where he stood.
Dad. Dad. You're my father. I'm your son. I love you. I always have, and I always will. But you think of yourself as a colored man. I think of myself as a man.
Whether behind the camera or in front of it, it was not movies he was making, it was milestones. Once he stood alone. Today, Sidney Poitier stands as the beginning.
Ladies and gentlemen, Louis Gossett Jr.
You know, I had the distinct privilege of working with Sidney Poitier, or as we affectionately call him in New York, Sidney Potter, in the film and Broadway production of A Raisin in the Sun. He had such a large influence on the male members of the cast, especially the way he walked. He had, if you've noticed, a kind of a hip first kind of, walk. He'd come. All of the male members of the cast began to walk and talk like it. Well, I don't walk and talk like you anymore, Brother Sidney. But I do follow in your footsteps. I have in my life. And you've never steered me wrong. I salute you. There is another generation of young people here that want to salute you too with a song that I think that you might recognize. And the song is from Lilies of the Field.
Right in a manger on Christmas morning. Down at the Jordan, where John baptized and singing on sinners. See him at the seaside, talking with the fishermen and making the disciples. Marching in Jerusalem, over palm branches.
Greetings, Mr. Poitier, from the Voices of the Next Generation. You have been an inspiration as well as a great role model to each and every one of us, and we'd like to congratulate you on your Kennedy Center honor. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, James Earl Jones.
Sidney established the height to which we actors must go. He brought an extreme integrity to his career and to his place in society. And once he set the height, he left it for us who followed to establish the breadth, especially African-American actors. So whatever the rest of us do, it will always be true that Sidney proves the ideal. So Sidney, much of what I am as an actor, I owe to you. Thank you, Sidney, for all of us. There's a simple song that Sidney Poitier learned as a child on Cat Island. The two words of the title describe the man we honor tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, to sing that song, Miss Jessie Norman.
That saved
I got my COVID-19 vaccination, and here's why. This isn't about gimmicks or sentiment or what commercial I like. This is about facts. COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective. Millions of doses have already been given in the United States, and these vaccines have the most intensive safety monitoring in U.S. history. People from different races, ages, genders, and ethnicities participated in large clinical trials around the world to make sure this vaccine worked for all kinds of people. The amount of time and effort dedicated to developing these vaccines was huge. Scientists used existing research and technology so they could get the vaccines developed quickly and safely without skipping any steps. If you need any more information, use a reliable source like the CDC website to get the facts.
Black history is everyone's history.
How would you describe your country?
The best way that I could describe America for someone who has never been is that it is a melting pot of many, many, many different cultures.
I would describe the UK as a country with lots of contrast. So you can go to a place like London, where I live, which is really, really diverse. You'll have like shops from all over the world. You have people from all over the world speaking different languages, and then you'll drive out like maybe 2-3 hours and then not see a black person at all.
If I could describe my experience in Japan in 3 words, it would be fun, safe, and peaceful, to say the least. However, on the other hand, being included by Japanese community and being so ingrained into the tradition and culture has made me ignorant and oblivious to my own bloodline, ancestral history, and culture.
What is Black History Month?
I would describe Black History Month as a time for people to learn about the Black communities in the areas they live in, so the country, or even around the world.
In Brazil, we mostly do small events. It could be some artistic events, some speeches.
We celebrate historical Black figures who've had a huge impact in the world and also amongst Black people. When I first arrived here in Vietnam, people were not really familiar with Black History Month, so I thought it was important for us to engage the local people amongst the Black people here.
When do you celebrate Black History Month?
In Australia, Black History Month is actually based in July. I think that people outside of Australia probably don't know that there's a Black History Month here, and I think that that's not really a surprise. Black History Month here is centered, and quite rightly so, around the Indigenous population. Unfortunately, the relations between the government and Indigenous Australia is really not what it should be, even in the sense of prioritising and amplifying the voices of Indigenous Australians. I don't really feel like we're there yet.
In America, we celebrate Black History Month during the month of February. It was originally only supposed to be a week long, and it was known as Negro History Week. But we decided to make it a month-long event because a week just wasn't enough.
We celebrate the Black History Month in November. The date is 20th of November. In Brazil, like for Black people, we are not pretty sure from where we are from, where we came from. So it's a way to celebrate all of the greatness that we have inside us and outside as well.
Just to give a depiction as to Japan's demographics, within Japan's population, only 2% of Japan's population are foreigners, and of that 2%, 80% of that 2% are foreigners from other Asian countries. Black History Month is not a nationally recognized thing. However, that does not stop us from taking our time to celebrate and remember our Black history within our community and outside our community. For Black History Month, Legacy Foundation Japan will be working with Monique Marianne, the heart behind organizing Black History Month events here in Japan for over 10 years.
When did you start learning about Black History Month?
I originally heard about Black History Month in elementary school, but our teachers did not really take advantage of Black History Month.
To be honest, like in Canada, there isn't much of a Black history curriculum at schools. We kind of go through like Martin Luther King, like a brief mention of Malcolm X, Nelson Mandela and the Underground Railroad because it came through Canada, but beyond that, it was kind of it.
A lot of the time when we learn about history, It's very, very whitewashed, and even when we do learn about Black history in school outside of Black History Month, there's not really that much of a focus.
If we learned about Black history, it wasn't, a lie. It was just like there was slavery and there was a little bit of the civil rights movement, but we didn't learn it as in depth as we learned white history.
What historical figures or events do you celebrate during Black History Month?
Knotten Hill Carnival is a really important event that takes place at the end of August, but it actually started after there were race riots in West London. So in the late 50s and early 60s, there was a huge influx of migration from the Caribbean after the war, and that obviously led to racial tensions. So the carnival was kind of in response and a celebration of West Indian culture in London.
There have been a number of first Blacks here in Japan. Chris Hart, he's from Bay Area, San Francisco, and he is a J-pop artist here in Japan.
One of the biggest historical events for Black History Month that was very important for America was the Civil Rights Movement. During the Civil Rights Movement, there were many marches, protests, and other events that helped to shape America the way we know it today.
Black people have had a huge impact around the world, and it's important to know that because sometimes there's a negative narrative about Black people, especially through the media.
For literally hundreds of years, Black people have been silenced in America. We were first silenced when we were kidnapped and brought here as slaves to work for free.
I feel that as an immigrant, especially one that got their citizenship that easily, I think that it's an obligation upon me to go and learn about the history of this country.
Growing up in the UK as a Black person, there is sometimes a consensus that being Black kind of makes you not British, which is completely not the case at all. And I think learning Black history, I've realised that Black people have been so pivotal to the making of the country. They continue to be really, really important to the country.
Black people are everywhere in the world. It's not just in the States, it's not just here. It's every country has a Black community and a story to go along with that Black community.
When people know our history, they can understand more about our resiliency and how far we've come and the things that we've endured and how we continue to keep going.
I got my COVID-19 vaccination, and here's why. This isn't about gimmicks or sentiment or what commercial I like. This is about facts. COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective. Millions of doses have already been given in the United States, and these vaccines have the most intensive safety monitoring in U.S. history. People from different races, ages, genders, and ethnicities participated in large clinical trials around the world to make sure this vaccine worked for all kinds of people. The amount of time and effort dedicated to developing these vaccines was huge. Scientists used existing research and technology so they could get the vaccines developed quickly and safely without skipping any steps. If you need any more information, use a reliable source like the CDC website to get the facts.
I'm Alan Jackson, and I'm inviting you to join us again next week, if it's God's will, when the Gospel Truth will once again come your way, bringing to you our continuation of Black History Month 2022. Until then, it is my prayer that God will continue to bless you and your family and to keep you all safe.